even improved. The deck had been restained, the windows replaced with newer models, and flower boxes hung from the railings. Though empty now, in late fall you've really kept it up, she observed, as Mark parked beside the cabin. Like I said, I'm here most weekends. He turned off the engine, started as just maintenance, but then I kind of got carried away. New roof last year, updated the kitchen. He trailed off, perhaps realizing he was rambling. Inside the cabin smelled of pine wood and lemon cleaning products. Mark flicked on the lights, illuminating a space that was both achingly familiar and subtly different. The furniture was the same, the overstead couch where they'd watched movies, the rustic dining table Mark had built himself, but everything seemed freshly cleaned and organized. Make yourself at home, Mark said, heading to the kitchen. I'll get dinner started. Steaks okay? Sure, Sarah replied absently, already drawn to explore the space. She ran her fingers along the bookshelf, heart clenching at the sight of Emma's picture books still lined up on the bottom shelf. Goodnight Moon, Where the Wild Things Are, The Velveteen Rabbit, all their bedtime favorites. On the wall, Emma's tiny fishing rod hung on the same wooden pegs, a child-sized life jacket beside it. The living room walls displayed photos. She remembered their family at the lake, Emma's first camping trip, the three of them on the deck during a spectacular sunset. But there were also newer additions. Photos of Emma she recognized from their house, ones Mark must have copied and framed after the divorce bathrooms, where it always was. Mark called from the kitchen. Though I updated the fixtures, Sarah walked down the short hallway, memories flooding back with each step. The bathroom was indeed updated with new tiles and modern fixtures, but the clawfoot tub Emma had loved remained. Sarah used the facilities and washed her hands, trying to compose herself for dinner. The garage entrance was just past the bathroom. Sarah pushed open the door, intending to just glance at Mark's weekend project space. The garage smelled of motor oil and sawdust, tools neatly arranged on pegboard walls, but it was the large cardboard box in the corner that made her freeze. Westinghouse. The brand name was printed in bold letters across the carton. Sarah's legs turned to jelly as she stepped closer, her breath coming in short gasps. The model number was visible on the side, G's 1964. The same model from Harold's ledger, the same as the oven in the swamp, but this box looked new, crisp edges and unfaded printing. Not 3 years old, not from April 1998. Sarah's vision blurred. She reached out to steady herself against Mark's workbench, knocking over a row of screwdrivers with a metallic clatter. Sarah. Mark appeared in the doorway, instantly concern etched on his face. What's wrong? She pointed at the box with a trembling hand, unable to form words. Her mind kept seeing the other ovens sealed with adhesive, knowing Emma had been inside. The garage seemed to spin around her. Oh Jesus, Mark said, understanding immediately. He rushed to her side, guiding her to sit on a plastic crate. I'm so sorry. After this morning, seeing any oven must be God. I should have moved. That Sarah gasped for air, feeling like she was drowning. The same. It's the same model. Hey, breathe with me. Mark knelt in front of her, taking her hands in through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. Why do you have that? She managed between gulps of air. My kitchen oven broke last month, Mark explained, rubbing her back in soothing circles. This was the only model that would fit the old space. I haven't had time to install it yet. He looked genuinely distressed. I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about how seeing that would affect you after today. Sarah forced herself to focus on breathing, on the solid feel of the crate beneath her, on Mark's familiar presence. It was just a coincidence. Lots of people had Westinghouse ovens. The fact that Mark had bought the same model meant nothing. She was seeing connections where none existed. Her traumatized mind making patterns out of random events. Her breathing gradually slowed as her vision cleared. She noticed the stack of beer six-packs against the far wall, at least a dozen cases of Coors Planning. Quite a party. she asked weakly, desperate to think about anything except ovens. Mark followed her gaze and gave a nervous laugh. Oh, that some fishing buddies are coming up next weekend. You know how guys are. I probably overbought, but better too much than running out. He helped her to her feet, keeping a supportive arm around her waist. Come on, let's get you inside. You should lie down while I finish dinner. This day has been too much for both of us. Sarah let him guide her back through the cabin to the couch, where she sank into the familiar cushions Mark brought her a glass of water and a blanket, fussing over her with a tenderness that reminded her of better times' rest. He said softly, I'll call you when dinner's ready. During dinner, Sarah picked at her steak while Mark worked his way through his second beer. Before the meal was even half finished, a dish, the dining table, the same one where they'd shared countless family meals, now felt like a barrier between them rather than a gathering place. Mark had grilled the steaks perfectly, medium rare, just how she liked, but Sarah could barely taste the food. We should talk about what happens next, Sarah ventured, setting down her fork. Detective Morrison said the DNA results will take 72 hours, but we could start pushing for a more thorough investigation maybe. Hire a private investigator to look into who bought ovens around that time. You know what I can't stop thinking about, Mark interrupted, draining his beer and immediately reaching for another from the six-pack he'd placed on the table. How hard I worked for this family. 60, 70 hours a week, sometimes building that business from nothing. Sarah shifted uncomfortably. Mark, that's not what we should be focusing on right now. And for what? He popped the cap off his third beer with more force than necessary. So you could divorce me. The minute things got tough, things were tough for years, Sarah said quietly. You were never home. Emma barely saw you. I was providing for my family. Mark's voice rose. Then he seemed to catch himself, taking a long pull from his beer. But that wasn't enough for you, was it? 6 months, Sarah. 6 months after the divorce was final, and you were already dating. Sarah sat down her water glass carefully. We were separated for a year before that. Mark, the marriage was over long before the papers were signed. He waved her words away dismissively, his movements becoming looser as the alcohol took effect. Separated, still married in God's eyes. In Emma's eyes. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. I saw you at Romano's with him. Our place, Sarah, the place I took you for our anniversary, where we celebrated Emma's first day of school. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. You were watching me. I happened to be driving by, Mark said, but his eyes slid away from hers. February 14th, Valentine's Day. You wore that blue dress I bought you for Christmas. 3 years before. Sarah's unease deepened. The blue dress detail was too specific for a casual drive-by. Mark, have you been following me? He ignored the question, draining his beer and reaching for another, his fourth, fifth. She'd lost count. He looked happy, laughing at his jokes, letting him hold your hand across the table like, Emma and I never existed. I need to call Detective Morrison, Sarah said, standing abruptly. Let him know where I am. See if there are any updates. She pulled out her cell phone, but the screen showed no signal. Bars, of course, they were too deep in the mountains. Landline, she asked, though she already suspected the answer. Disconnected it months ago, Mark said, not looking up from his beer. Too expensive for a weekend place. Nobody to call anyway. Sarah's pulse quickened. They were 40 minutes from town. No cell service, no landline, and Mark was drinking heavily. With his truck as the only vehicle, she moved toward the living room, trying to appear casual. Where are you going? Mark's voice had an edge to it. Just stretching my legs. It's been a long day. Sit down. It wasn't a request. We're not done talking. Sarah reluctantly returned to her chair, very aware now of how isolated they were. Mark's face had flushed from the alcohol, his eyes taking on a glassy quality she remembered from the worst days of their marriage. Emma was the only good thing in my life, he said, his words beginning to slur slightly. My perfect little girl, and you took her away from me. Mark, the divorce had nothing to do with Emma's disappearance. His laugh was cold, humorless. You have no idea about cause and effect, do you? How one thing leads to another, like dominoes falling. He stood abruptly, swaying slightly, and moved to get another beer from the kitchen. Sarah seized her chance, heading quickly for the door. She'd walked to town if she had to flag down a car. On the main road, anything to get away from this increasingly unstable situation, but Mark was faster than his intoxication suggested. He intercepted her at the door, his body blocking her exit, going somewhere. His voice had dropped to something dangerous. I want to go home, Sarah said firmly, though her voice shook. You're drunk and you're scaring me. Scaring you? Mark laughed again, that same cold sound. You want to know what's scary, Sarah? Watching your ex-wife replace you like you never mattered, watching her laugh and smile. Love us anymore, let me leave. Mark. Sarah tried to sidestep him, but he grabbed her arm, his grip painful. You want to know about coincidences? His mask finally dropped completely, and Sarah saw something in his eyes that made her stomach drop. Not just anger, but something darker, more calculated. That oven in my garage, I bought it last month to replace the one I put Emma in. The words didn't make sense at first. Sarah's mind refused to process them. What couldn't have an empty space in my kitchen? Mark continued, his grip. People would notice, ask questions. Where's your oven? Mark, why is there a gap in your counter? No, the word came out as a whisper. No. You were at work, the cameras. I was at work when she disappeared from the yard. Mark agreed. But she didn't disappear, did she? Not really. I kept her down there for 3 years. While you were out dating, replacing us. Sarah's legs gave out, but Mark's grip kept her upright. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. You're lying, she gasped. You're drunk and cruel and lying. The basement. Sarah, she was in this basement. Right below us, the whole time you were filing for divorce, the whole time you were moving on with your life. Sarah tried to scream, but Mark clamped his hand over her mouth. She bit down hard, tasting blood, and he cursed but didn't let go. Instead, he dragged her toward the basement door, her feet scrambling for purchase on the wooden floor. Time you saw where your daughter really was. He snarled, yanking open the basement door while you were playing happy families with someone new. With a violent shove, he sent her tumbling down the wooden stairs into the darkness below in the basement. Sarah landed hard on the concrete floor, pain shooting through her hip and elbow as her eyes adjusted to the dim light from a single bulb overhead. The room came into horrifying focus. To her left was a small room, maybe 10 by 12 feet, with concrete walls, painted a faded pink. A child's son. Cat Emma had lived here. Her baby had been here the whole time. Mark descended the stairs, slowly gripping the railing for balance, despite his intoxication. He positioned himself to block any escape route, his bulky frame filling the stairway. Welcome to Emma's home, away from home, he said, his voice a mixture of pride and bitterness. 3 years, Sarah, 3 years. She lived right here while you were filing papers, going on dates, replacing us. Sarah pushed herself up, her entire body trembling. How you were at work when she disappeared. The cameras proved I was at work at 3:30 p.m. on September 15th. Mark interrupted, leaning against the wall. They didn't show me with. Princess sheets sat against one wall, scattered across a small carpet were children's books, chapter books for early readers, workbooks for elementary math, a stack of notebooks filled with a child's evolving handwriting, toys appropriate for a 6 to 9-year-old girl, lined wooden shelves, dolls with handmade clothes, art supplies, a small electronic keyboard. Sarah's heart shattered as the truth crashed over her. Taking my lunch break at noon, driving home, waiting in the garage. I knew your schedule better than you did laundry day. You always started a load right after lunch, stayed inside for at least 30 minutes for the wash cycle. Sarah's mind reeled, trying to reconcile this monster with the man she'd married, who'd held their daughter in the delivery room, who'd cried at Emma's first steps. I'd been planning since the day you filed those papers. Mark continued, his words flowing like poison. Built this room over weekends when I said I was at the cabin, soundproofed the walls, installed the ventilation system, told Emma I was building her a surprise playroom. He gestured around the space with drunken expansiveness. The day I took her, I told her Mummy didn't want us anymore. Said Mummy had decided she only wanted one person in her life and she didn't choose us. Emma cried for you for weeks. You're a monster. Sarah whispered, I'm a father who refused to lose his daughter. Mark shouted, then swayed, catching himself against the wall. I homeschooled her down here. Taught her reading, math, science. We had a routine breakfast at 8 o'clock, lessons until noon lunch. Then playtime. I was the father you always said. I wasn't present, involved, dedicated. You kidnapped her, you imprisoned her. I saved her from a broken home. Mark's face contorted with rage and pain, but she never stopped asking for you every single day. When can I see Mummy? I want to go home. I told her this was home now, but she was stubborn. Just like you. Sarah noticed a crude calendar on the wall, days marked off in crayon, 3 years of marked days. Her knees nearly buckled. At first she tried to run whenever I opened the door. Mark continued, while your daughter asks every day, why Mummy doesn't, his voice becoming almost conversational in its horror. So I had to be careful, keep the basement door locked from outside, but she got clever as she got older, started hiding behind the door, trying to squeeze past me. By the time she turned 9, she was getting too smart, too strong. His voice cracked, and Sarah saw tears mixing with the alcoholic flush on his face. She started threatening to hurt herself if I didn't take her home. Said she'd stop eating, said she'd find ways to make me sorry. My little girl, my sweet Emma, talking about hurting herself because she wanted to leave me, because you were keeping her prisoner. Sarah screamed, because you poisoned her against me. Mark roared back, even down here, even after 3 years she loved you more. It was always Mummy this and Mummy that, and Mummy would let me, and Mummy's looking for me. He stumbled to a small refrigerator in the corner, pulling out another beer from what looked like an endless supply. Sarah's eyes frantically searched for another exit, a weapon, anything. I always knew how it would have to end if she didn't accept our new life. Mark said, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. Part of me hoped, but deep down I knew. What did you do? Sarah's voice was barely audible. It was a Thursday. She'd been particularly defiant that week, screaming whenever I came down, throwing her books at me. I'd been drinking more. The stress, you understand. That morning she looked me right in the eye and said, I hate you, Mummy. Will find me and you'll go to jail forever. Mark took a long pull from his beer, his hand shaking. I made her favorite juice, apple, with just a little bit of grape mixed in, put the sedatives in it, enough to make her sleep. She drank it during lunch, started getting drowsy during our reading time. Sarah's hands clenched into fists, nails cutting into her palms. I told her there were monsters outside, bad people who wanted to hurt us. Told her she needed to hide in the special hiding place. The oven. She was so sleepy, so trusting. Even then climbed right in with her stuffed rabbit. Stop, Sarah begged, but Mark continued relentlessly. I turned the heat up slowly, put a chair against the door so she couldn't push it open if she woke up. She never woke up. Sarah, the sedatives made sure of that. Carbon monoxide got her before the heat. Sarah doubled over, retching the full horror of her daughter's final moments crashing over her. I kept her in there for hours, making sure. Mark said clinically. Then I sealed it up with adhesive, drove out to the swamp at night, picked the deepest part where I knew it would sink, came back, cleaned the kitchen, installed the new oven I'd bought in April. Perfect crime, except for you. Except for me, Sarah gasped through her tears. I wanted you to suffer like I did. Wanted you to know she died in fear and pain, burned and destroyed, like how I felt watching you laugh with another man at Romano's our place, while our daughter was right here under this roof, waiting for Mummy, who chose dating over finding her Mark, turned toward the corner where cases of beer were stacked against the wall. Need another drink to tell you the rest. In that moment, as he turned his back, Sarah saw it. A hammer on the nearby workbench within reach, without thought, driven by pure survival instinct and a rage she didn't know she possessed. She lunged for it. The weight felt solid in her hand as she swung with all her strength, connecting with the back of Mark's skull with a sickening crack. He dropped instantly, beer bottle shattering on the concrete, foam mixing with the blood that began pooling beneath his head. Sarah didn't check if he was breathing, didn't care. She scrambled over his prone form and up the stairs, her body moving on pure adrenaline. His truck keys were on the kitchen counter where he dropped them. She grabbed them with shaking hands and ran outside. The truck started on the first try. Sarah threw it in reverse tires, spinning on the dirt drive, then shifted to drive and floored it. Tree branches scraped the sides as she took the narrow road to fast, desperate to get away, to get help, to get justice for Emma. She drove frantically down the mountain road, taking curves at dangerous speeds, checking the rear-view mirror obsessively, though she knew Mark couldn't follow. 10 minutes down the mountain, her phone finally showed one bar of signal. She pulled over, hands shaking so badly it took 3 tries to dial 911 911. What's your emergency? This is Sarah Whitmore. I'm on Mountain Road near Deer Lake. My ex-husband Mark Whitmore just confessed to murdering our daughter Emma. He kept her in his basement for 3 years before killing her. He's at the cabin 2847 Deer Lake Road. I hit him with a hammer. I don't know if he's alive. Please send help. Please, ma'am, slow down. Are you safe right now? I'm in his truck on the side of the road. He killed my baby. He kept her in the basement, and then he put her in an oven. And Sarah broke down completely, unable to continue. We're dispatching units to both locations now, ma'am. Stay on the line with me. Are you injured? Through her sobs, Sarah managed to give the dispatcher the crucial details. Mark's confession, the basement prison, the location of the cabin. She stayed on the line as instructed, sitting in the truck on the dark mountain road, finally knowing the truth that would haunt her forever. Police units arrived at the cabin within 20 minutes of Sarah's call, their sirens echoing through the mountain darkness. The first officers found Mark Whitmore unconscious in the basement, blood pooling beneath his head from a severe wound. Paramedics worked to stabilize him while crime scene investigators began documenting the horror of Emma's prison, the pink concrete walls, the princess sheets, the calendar with 3 years of crossed-off days at the Pine Ridge police station. Sarah sat in an interview room, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, though she couldn't stop shaking. Detective Morrison sat across from her, his weathered face showing the strain of the revelations. Take your time, he said gently. I know this is impossibly difficult, but we need every detail. Sarah recounted everything, the dinner marks, drinking, his escalating aggression, and finally his terrible confession. Her voice broke repeatedly, but she forced herself to continue to speak Emma's truth into the official record. He said he kept her for 3 years. She whispered, 3 years, while I searched, while I begged you to find her. She was right there through the interview room's window. She could see increased activity in the station, officers coming and going, evidence bags being logged, the controlled chaos of a major case breaking open. Sarah, I need to step out for a moment, Detective Morrison said. After 2 hours, Mark's conscious and talking. I'll update you as soon as I can. Alone in the room, Sarah stared at her hands, the same hands that had pushed Emma on the swings, braided her hair, held her during thunderstorms. The same hands that had swung the hammer to save her own life. Detective Morrison returned an hour later, his expression grim, his confessing to everything. "We've got it all on tape." He sat down heavily, opening a notebook. "According to Mark, his drinking started escalating when your marriage began deteriorating. He said he used alcohol to cope with what he called your constant complaints about his work hours. After you filed for divorce, his consumption increased dramatically, a 12-pack or more daily." Sarah closed her eyes, remembering the smell of beer on his breath during their final months together. "He admits to stalking you after the separation." Morrison continued, "We found journals at the cabin documenting your movements, your daily routines, who you talked to, photos of you taken without your knowledge." The entries become increasingly erratic and hostile as his alcoholism worsened. "The restaurant," Sarah said quietly, "he mentioned seeing me at Romano's." Morrison nodded. "February 14th, 1999, you were there with David Carlson from your book club," Mark wrote. 10 pages about that night. He considered it, and I'm quoting here, "the ultimate betrayal of our family," he said. "Seeing you at Emma's favorite restaurant with another man was when he decided you needed to be punished." Sarah's stomach turned. He planned it all methodically. He built the basement room over a period of months, telling people he was renovating the cabin, soundproofed the walls, installed locks that could only be opened from outside during his visitation weekends with Emma. He groomed her to trust him completely, told her he was preparing a special surprise. Morrison flipped pages in his notebook. The kidnapping itself was carefully timed. He knew you did laundry every Monday after lunch, that you'd be inside for at least 30 minutes. He took his lunch break, drove home, waited in the garage. When Emma came near the back gate, called her over, told her mummy said she could come for a special daddy or today. She went willingly. Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. She trusted him. He drove her straight to the cabin, told her you didn't want them anymore, that you'd chosen a new life without them. He kept her in that basement for exactly 3 years, homeschooling her, controlling every aspect of her life. The beer cans, we found hundreds of them throughout the cabin, indicate he was drinking constantly during those years. Morrison paused, clearly struggling with the next part. He says, "Emma never stopped asking for you, never stopped trying to escape as she got older and stronger." He knew he was losing control. The end came when she was 9. She'd become defiant, threatening to hurt herself if he didn't let her go home. He gave her sedatives in apple juice. Sarah whispered, "The medical examiner has confirmed cause of death as carbon monoxide." Poisoning the sedatives ensured she was unconscious. She didn't suffer, Sarah. That's the one mercy in all this. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. "We found his research on his computer." Morrison continued searches about body disposal, about psychological torture. He wanted the oven specifically because he knew how the discovery would affect you. He wrote about wanting you to picture her final moments, to suffer as he believed he was suffering. What charges Sarah managed to ask: kidnapping, false imprisonment, murder in the first degree, with his confession and the physical evidence he'll never see. Freedom again. During the interrogation, he alternated between sobbing about how much he loved Emma and raging about your betrayal. He shows no genuine remorse, only self-pity and anger that his plan ultimately failed. Morrison reached across the table, placing a paternal hand over Sarah's arm. "So sorry we didn't find her in time. 3 years she was alive, and we failed her. We all failed her," Sarah said quietly. A knock interrupted them. An officer entered. "Detective, the media's gathering outside. They'll want a statement." Sarah stood on unsteady legs. "I'll speak to them. Other families need to know, need to understand that sometimes the danger isn't a stranger." The statement was brief. Sarah standing before the cameras with Detective Morrison beside her. She spoke about seeking justice for Emma, about supporting other families of missing children, about the importance of never giving up hope even when that hope led to devastating truth back inside the station. Morrison walked her to a quiet room away from the chaos. We'll have victim support services contact you immediately, counseling, legal advocacy, whatever you need to get through this. We'll be with you every step of the way through the trial. Mark will spend the rest of his life behind bars for what he did to Emma. Sarah nodded numbly. Thank you, do. You have someone who can be with you tonight. You shouldn't be alone. My sister's driving down from Portland. Morrison squeezed her shoulder gently. I'll give you a few minutes. Take as long as you need. When the door closed behind him, Sarah sank into a chair in the empty room. The silence pressed in on her, the weight of everything crushing her chest. Her baby had been alive for 3 years while she'd mourned her as dead. 3 years of birthdays, Christmases, bedtimes, all spent in a basement prison, while Sarah searched everywhere but the one place she'd never thought to look. She pressed her hands to her face, speaking silently through her tears. Emma, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I didn't find you. I'm sorry. I didn't know, but I promise you, my sweet girl, I promise he'll pay for what he did. I'll fight to make sure he never hurts anyone again, and I'll remember you, not how you died, but how you lived, your laugh, your smile, the way you saw magic in everything. I'll carry you with me, always, my precious daughter. Always. The room held her words, her promise. Her broken heart outside the business of justice continued, but in that moment, Sarah Whitmore sat alone with her grief and her memories of a little girl in a red velvet dress who had loved her unconditionally, even in the darkness.